This is an introduction to the idea of rational exponents. We have been exposed to lots of different kinds of exponents. We understand that x to the fourth, by definition, means multiply the base x 4 times. We understand that the exponent -2, the negative portion of the exponent means the reciprocal of our base, so x to the -2 would mean 1 over x squared, or 1 over x times x. We also have exponents that are rational exponents. The idea of a rational exponent, if you look at the word rational, its root word is ratio. Ratio referring to a fraction. So a rational exponent, then, is simply an exponent that is fractional. These fractional exponents could take the form of something like x to the 1/2, or 8 to the 1/3, or even 8 to the 2/3, things of this form. Well, we know that x squared would mean multiply x times x. What would x to the 1/2 mean? When we have a rational exponent, that denominator, in our case the denominator 2, refers to the index of a root. In other words, x to the 1/2 would mean the square root of x. There are times we need an alternate way to write the square root of x, not using that radical symbol. So x to the 1/2 is what's known as an equivalent form. 8 to the 1/3 would be the equivalent of the third root or cube root of 8. The base of your power is the radicand underneath your radical. The denominator of the exponent tells you your root. If we were to look at 8 to the 2/3, that would be the same as saying 8 to the 1/3 squared. We're just pulling apart that exponent and thinking of it as two pieces. The fraction 1/3 raised to the power 2, which would be the equivalent of the cube root of 8 squared. This same example, 8 to the 2/3 power, could also be thought of as 8 squared raised to the 1/3 power. Squared raised to the 1/3 would be the same thing as the 1/3 power squared. So this could be written as the third root of 8 squared. These two expressions are equivalent. Whether the exponent 2 is outside the radical or inside the radical makes no difference. You can choose whichever one is easier for you to simplify. So in our case, we have a choice of taking the third root of 8 and squaring it, or taking the 8, squaring it, and then finding the cube root. I personally would choose this method because I know the third root of 8 is 2. 2 raised to the third power is 8. So the third root of 8 is 2, squared would be 4. The second option, taking 8 and squaring it, getting 64, then taking the third root of 64. Well, I know 4 to the third is 64, so the cube root of 64 is 4. The same answer either way, but this first option, the numbers are a little bit nicer to deal with. You can choose the one that you like. Here's another example. 4 to the, let's make this 5/2 power. You can think of this in two ways. You can think of it as 4 to the 1/2 raised to the 5th, or you can think of it as 4 to the 5th raised to the 1/2. Either option works, they mean exactly the same thing. If we go the route of 4 to the 1/2 raised to the 5th, the 1/2 power means the square root of 4 raised to the 5th power. Well, the square root of 4 is 2, so that leaves us with 2 to the 5th, and 2 to the 5th is 32. If we take the other option, we have 4 to the 5th power And 4 to the 5th power is 1024. Raised to the 1/2 power, that would mean the square root of 1024. And the square root of 1024 is 32. So again, you can take either route you like, but the first one would be a little bit easier for most of us.